Hi there. Thank you once again for joining me on the program, Your Doctor in COVID. I'm Dr. Mahendra Carpen. I'm the head of medical services and cardiology at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. Today we are talking more and more about our COVID-19 vaccination program. We're looking at myths, we're looking at facts, and I want to encourage you, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send a WhatsApp message to 620-6275 or send an email to docandcovid@gmail.com. I'm alone in studio as we're recording this episode, so I'll take my mask off. I'll do so using the straps around the back of my head and not holding the mask at the front, because you do not know what kind of particles, viruses, bacteria, etc. are stuck onto the mask, the major surface of the mask at the front. And if you use your hand to hold it there, you then can use that same hand and touch your nose, and touch your mouth, touch your eyes, rub your eyes, and you can transmit whatever infective agent is on the mask to your body. So it's important to know the correct way to put it on to cover both the nose and the mouth, and it's important to know the correct way to take it off, which is by holding the straps and taking it off. So we're looking again at the COVID-19 pandemic and our strategies in mitigating the effects. And we can do two things. We can find a cure, or we can follow what the old people say: prevention is better than cure. So vaccines are a part of the prevention. Remember, vaccines are supposed to do two things. They're supposed to prevent the infection and disrupt the transmission. Prevent infection and disrupt transmission. And what we have seen with these vaccines, all of the vaccines for COVID-19, they are 100% effective in preventing severe COVID-19. So persons who would have taken these vaccines, regardless of which brand they took, which country they're from, there's a 100% record in preventing serious, severe illness that required ICU hospitalization and ended up in an outcome as bad as death. So that's a very good record for these vaccines. As you know, we have the AstraZeneca vaccine here in Guyana, and we also have the Sinopharm or Sinovac Chinese vaccine in Guyana. And we will receive in short order the vaccines from Russia, the Sputnik 5. And hopefully we continue to replenish our supplies. Despite all of the information that is available on the benefits and use of these vaccines, there is still a significant number of persons, a significant percentage of population, not just in Guyana but around the world, that express doubts in several aspects of the vaccines: the development, the side effects, the effectiveness. Some people have conspiracy theories that this vaccine is there to modify your genetics, to cause infertility, to contribute to mind control. All of these myths and conspiracy theories are out there, and it is important to recognize them for what they are, and they're not based on factual scientific data. So if you were to look around the world, the global majority of persons, thankfully, will take the vaccine. Only about 8% of the population that was surveyed, and this was among 19 countries, over 13,000 persons who were surveyed. Only 8% of people said that they would completely disagree with taking the vaccine. Whatever the reason, we would analyze that, or we would have analyzed that in previous episodes that I talked to you about. But thankfully, 47% of persons completely agree to take the vaccine, and another 25% would somewhat agree. So that's about 75% of people right there who are willing to take the vaccine, and that's a great start. Who are the people really that should get the COVID-19 vaccine? And this is where we divide persons into priority groups. Of course, we'd like to vaccinate everyone, all adults in the population, persons who are living in Guyana. But there are certain well-recognized priority groups that are put ahead of the rest of the population. And this is simply because that there is a mismatch between supply and demand. There are a limited number of vaccine doses, and so therefore we have to prioritize and use the vaccines in the most vulnerable population at the beginning. And as production ramps up and our access to more vaccines improve, then the general population will also become more and more eligible. So the first priority group is our healthcare workers. And it's important to keep the healthcare workers protected because they are considered what we call force multipliers. One healthcare worker can contribute to saving the lives of several persons in the population. And if one doctor or one nurse goes down, then they can also affect the team because they would have interacted with the team. If one person tests positive or becomes sick, then a whole lot of them or us will have to be placed in isolation and monitoring. So it makes sense that this is our first priority group. The second priority group is our older population. And right now in Guyana, we're targeting our over 60 population. And the under 60 population, if they have comorbid conditions, that would be our third priority group. And what are comorbid conditions? Comorbid conditions are essentially underlying health conditions that affect the outcome of this disease. And these include things like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney disease, blood disease, immunocompromised states, cancers, HIV, etc. These are all persons who are vulnerable to the effects of COVID-19, and they therefore should be vaccinated. I have had calls, messages, all kinds of contact with patients, families, relatives, my own friends, etc., about their suitability for taking vaccines. And there is one group that absolutely should not take the vaccine. And that group consists of persons who have a history of severe allergic reaction to vaccines in general, and more particular to any component of the vaccine that is produced. So if you have a history of severe allergies to a vaccine before, you should not take the COVID-19 vaccine now. Or if you have a severe allergy to any component that is in the COVID-19 vaccine, you should not take that vaccine. So who should not take the vaccine shots? A history of allergies, persons with active fever, persons with an active bleeding disorder, persons who would have received another type of COVID vaccine. And that is important because, again, a lot of questions are coming from people. They want to know, especially, Guyanese travel a lot to the US. So persons are asking, can I take an AstraZeneca shot in Guyana, and when I go to New York, take the Pfizer or the Moderna? And so far, the answer is no. If you are going to take the AstraZeneca, take 2 doses of the AstraZeneca. If you're going to take the Pfizer, then you take 2 doses of that. It is not recommended for you to mix the doses or to mix the brands of these vaccines. So we can look at some of the myths and some of the facts to counteract those myths. The biggest one that people are worried about, especially in the mRNA type vaccines, that's the Pfizer and Moderna, is that COVID-19 vaccines alter or change your DNA. The mRNA doesn't enter the cell's nucleus, so it doesn't enter your cells, and therefore cannot change your DNA. That's the fact. The next myth that people are running around with, because they say that it's not safe to take because of a quick rollout. Well, the fact is that these vaccines had a thorough safety standard, and all of these standards were met through a vigorous process of scientific trials and testing. The next myth is food allergy, immunocompromised, breastfeeding, or pregnant people can't get the vaccine. The fact is that these people can actually get the vaccine, and a lot of them are in a higher risk group that they should get the vaccine. So immunocompromised people, breastfeeding mothers, pregnant mothers, they can all get the vaccine. The next one that people are worried about is that I can get COVID-19 from the vaccine. That is false. The vaccine cannot give you the virus. It actually protects you from the virus. And this is true because no live virus is involved in the vaccine. There are parts of the virus that are involved in producing the vaccine, but those are killed, or what we call denatured parts of the virus. And this is particularly the spike protein, which is the part of the virus that attaches to the human cells. So if we use that and we develop defense mechanism against the attachment process, then the virus will not be able to attach or not attach effectively, and hence the effects will be mitigated. The next myth that people are worried about, they say, I have had COVID-19, so I don't need the vaccine. The fact is that the natural immunity length is unknown, and the vaccine fights a reinfection. So if you get COVID, we don't know how long your immunity will last after you recover from COVID. And it is still recommended that you get a vaccine shot to boost your immunity. In fact, in a lot of countries, in Europe especially, if you would have had COVID before, they recommend a single dose of the COVID vaccine versus 2 doses. But you have to wait about 3 months after recovery from COVID-19 infection. The next big one that people need to be aware of is the myth is no need for mask or social distancing after vaccine. And that is a big one that we need to be aware of, because we still, after vaccine, we still need to wear our masks. We still need to sanitize and wash hands as often as possible, and we still need to maintain social distancing. Why is that so? The vaccine has been shown to prevent you from getting severe COVID-19 infection, not going to the ICU and not dying. But you can still get mild disease, you can still get moderate disease. If you protect yourself by continuing to wear masks, sanitize, etc., it means that you're putting other systems in place to protect yourself. Not just the vaccine to prevent the severe problems, but the other systems in place, the masks, the sanitation or sanitization, and the social distancing can help prevent the mild to moderate forms of the disease. And more importantly, when you protect yourself, you are also protecting those around you, especially your older family members, those you spend time with, those you work around, and those you come in contact with. So I hope this would have clarified some of the facts, some of the myths that surround the COVID-19 vaccine. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send me a WhatsApp message to 620-6275, or you may email docandcovid@gmail.com. Thank you once again for joining me.